Walter Briggs had lived most of his life serving people. For more than 30 years, he had been a sheriff in a quiet county of Arizona, handling every kind of situation: lost travelers, missing animals, confused tourists, troubled families, and the occasional accidents on lonely roads. He had seen the best and worst moments of people's lives, and those experiences had shaped him into someone calm, patient, and strong. But after retirement, his world had become slow and quiet. His wife had passed away years earlier, and his daughter lived in another state with her own family. Most days, he lived alone in a small house on the edge of town, surrounded by open land and long, silent roads. Every morning, he would wake up early, drink a cup of coffee, and take long drives through the desert. He said these drives helped him feel connected to the world, even when no one else was around. The desert was empty, but to him, it felt full of stories. The rising sun, the cool breeze before noon, the distant mountains, and the long stretches of cactus and sand, it all felt peaceful. Walter believed that the desert had a way of revealing things to those who paid attention. On one warm morning, just as the sun was climbing higher into the sky, Walter took his usual route. He drove an old pickup truck that he kept in good shape, and the engine hummed softly as he moved along the dusty road. He rolled down the window to let in the fresh morning air. The sky was clear, painted with shades of gold and pale blue. He felt grateful for the quiet, the kind of quiet that made him feel alive rather than lonely. As he drove deeper into the desert, he noticed something unusual. It started as a flicker in the corner of his eye, a very small movement near a trail he rarely saw people use. At first he thought it might be an animal, maybe a small bird or a lizard rushing through the bushes. But something about it didn't feel right. He slowed the truck and looked carefully. There it was again, a faint motion like someone trying to move but unable to do it properly. Walter stopped the truck and stepped outside, adjusting his hat to block the sun. The desert was quiet, too quiet. His footsteps pressed lightly into the sand as he moved toward the bushes. He kept his senses sharp, not because he expected danger, but because years of being a sheriff had taught him that the unexpected could appear anywhere. As he got closer, he heard a soft sound, almost like a weak breath. His heart tightened. He gently pushed aside the dry branches, and that was when he saw her, a young woman lying on the ground, half hidden under the shadow of a bush. Her long dark hair was dusty, her clothes were torn, and her skin looked pale from heat and exhaustion. She appeared very young, maybe in her early 20s. Her eyes were half open, but the moment she saw Walter, fear and relief mixed together in her expression. Walter knelt beside her and spoke softly. "Hey there. I'm here to help. Can you hear me?" She tried to speak, but her voice came out in a weak whisper. She seemed too tired to form words. He noticed her lips were dry and her hands trembled slightly. She looked like she had been there for a long time, without water, without shade, without anyone to take care of her. He asked her gently if she was hurt, and she moved her head slightly as if trying to explain. When her body shifted even a little, Walter realized something more serious. She wasn't moving her legs at all. They stayed still, almost stiff. She seemed unable to use them. Concern grew inside him, but he didn't let fear show on his face. He knew she needed calm energy, something steady. "Don't worry," he said softly. "I'm going to get you to safety. I promise." He offered her water from the bottle he carried in his truck. She sipped slowly, carefully, as if every drop gave her a little more strength. But her hands still trembled, and her breathing remained light and weak. Walter asked her name, and after a moment she whispered, "Naya." Her voice was soft, almost like a child's, tired and fragile. Walter spoke again. "Naya, you're safe now. I'll take you to the hospital." But when she heard the word hospital, fear flashed in her eyes. She tried to move her head as if to say something, but her body was too weak. Walter placed his hand gently on her arm and said, "It's okay. I won't let anything bad happen to you. But you need help. You can't stay here." The desert sun was growing stronger, and Walter knew she didn't have much time. He carefully lifted her into his arms. She was light, too light, as if she hadn't eaten in days. He moved slowly so she wouldn't feel any pain. Her head rested weakly against his shoulder. As he carried her toward the truck, he couldn't stop thinking about how she had ended up there. The trail where she was found wasn't a place people commonly visited. There were no signs of an accident, no broken bike, no fallen branch, nothing. It almost felt as if she had been left there intentionally, hidden away from anyone who might help her. The thought made Walter's chest tighten, but he kept himself calm. First, save her. Everything else could come later. He gently placed her on the passenger seat, buckling the seatbelt around her with great care. She looked at him with tired eyes full of questions, maybe even fear. He gave her a reassuring nod. "I'm right here," he said. "You're not alone anymore." He drove toward the nearest hospital, which was more than 30 miles away. The road was bumpy in the beginning, but he tried to drive as smoothly as possible. He kept talking to her softly so she wouldn't fall unconscious again. Simple things like telling her his name, where they were going, and how she was doing great just by staying awake. Sometimes Naya closed her eyes, but each time he called her name gently, she opened them again with effort. Her breathing grew steadier, but her body remained still from the waist down. Walter didn't ask too many questions. He didn't want to overwhelm her. All he cared about was getting her to a safe place where doctors could take care of her. The drive felt longer than usual, each minute stretching like an hour. Walter kept checking on her, making sure she wasn't slipping into unconsciousness. The desert outside seemed endless, but he pushed the truck forward with determination. Finally, after what felt like a lifetime, he saw the first buildings of the town. The hospital was small but known for its helpful staff. Walter parked the truck right in front of the emergency entrance, hurried out, and called for help. Nurses rushed out with a stretcher, carefully transferring Naya inside. Walter stood by her side the entire time, not leaving even for a second. As they wheeled her into the treatment room, a nurse asked him what had happened. Walter explained everything he saw, though he still didn't know how she had gotten there or how long she had been lying under those bushes. Inside the hospital, the cool air felt like a different world compared to the burning desert. Naya closed her eyes, but this time it wasn't fear or exhaustion. It looked like safety, the kind of comfort one feels after escaping something terrible. Walter watched through the small window as doctors examined her, checking her pulse, her hydration levels, and her injuries. He felt a strange mixture of relief and worry. He had saved her from the desert, but he didn't know what she had been facing before that moment, or why she had been alone in such a remote place. All he knew was that his morning drive had changed something. Changed him, changed her, and maybe changed the path of their lives in ways neither of them could yet understand. When Naya opened her eyes again, the soft white lights of the hospital ceiling greeted her instead of the harsh desert sun. For a moment, she didn't know where she was. The bed under her felt soft, the sheets clean, and the air cool. It took her a while to understand that she was finally somewhere safe. Her body still felt heavy, almost frozen from the waist down. But her mind was clearing little by little. A nurse noticed her waking up and smiled warmly. She spoke gently, offering water and checking her breathing. Naya struggled to lift her hands. But the nurse helped her. Everything felt different from the silence and heat of the desert. Here she could hear distant footsteps, soft voices, and the steady hum of machines. It was unfamiliar, but it wasn't frightening. Walter was sitting on a chair near the foot of her bed. His old hat rested on his knee, and his eyes carried both concern and relief. When he saw her awake, he stood up slowly and walked closer. "You're safe now," he said in a calm voice. "You've been sleeping for a while. The doctors are taking good care of you." Naya looked at him, trying to form words, but her throat was still dry. The nurse reassured her, telling her she didn't need to talk right away. She just had to rest. The doctor entered the room shortly after. He spoke with kindness, but also with the kind of seriousness that told Walter something important was coming. He explained that Naya had suffered from extreme exhaustion and dehydration. Her body had been pushed far beyond its limits. As for her legs, he said that she had a spinal injury that affected her lower body. It was too early to say what would happen next. Only time and care could show how much recovery was possible. Walter listened carefully, nodding with quiet determination. He asked every question politely but firmly, wanting to know everything he could about her condition. The doctor assured him that they would do their best, and that she was lucky he found her when he did. After the doctor left, Walter moved his chair closer to her bedside. Naya watched him with tired eyes, but there was something new in them. Trust. She didn't know him well, but she knew he had saved her life. He introduced himself again. "My name is Walter Briggs. I used to be a sheriff in this county. I found you in the desert yesterday morning." She blinked slowly, taking in his words. Her voice was faint when she spoke. "Thank you." It was the only thing she had the strength to say, but Walter felt how much it meant. Over the next few days, Naya remained under close medical care. Nurses visited her regularly, giving her medicine, assisting with her meals, and helping her adjust to the new reality she was facing. She spent long hours resting, letting her body heal. During those quiet hours, Walter visited her every day. Sometimes he brought books, though she wasn't strong enough to read yet. Other times, he simply sat with her, talking softly about simple things. His old job, the landscapes of Arizona, the animals he used to rescue, and stories from people he had helped over the years. He didn't ask her about her past right away. He understood that memories can be painful, and trust takes time. Instead, he offered comfort through his presence. He believed that people speak more easily when they feel safe, and he wanted her to know he wasn't going anywhere. Little by little, Naya began to open up. At first, she spoke only in small pieces, choosing her words with care. She told him she was from a nearby Apache reservation, where life was quiet and simple. She grew up surrounded by traditions, family gatherings, and stories passed down through generations. She loved drawing, making beadwork, and spending time in nature. The desert that almost took her life had once been her home, a place she admired for its beauty and calm. Walter listened without interrupting. He noticed that when she talked about her home, her face softened and her voice carried a gentle warmth. He eventually asked her how she ended up alone in such a remote area of the desert. But she hesitated. She looked away, her eyes reflecting sadness mixed with fear. She wasn't ready to explain everything yet, and Walter respected that immediately. "It's okay," he said softly. "You can tell me whenever you feel comfortable. There's no rush." His understanding made her relax. She nodded slightly and whispered, "Thank you for not pushing me." The days went by, and Naya's strength began to return in small ways. Her arms grew steadier, and she could sit upright for longer periods. Nurses encouraged her to start gentle exercises to maintain her upper body strength. Though her lower body remained still, she tried her best to stay hopeful. Sometimes, when the pain or numbness became overwhelming, she closed her eyes and reminded herself that she had survived something difficult, and that she wasn't alone now. Walter continued to visit her daily, and their conversations grew deeper. She told him about her love for her community, how she used to help children with art, and how she felt connected to the land around her. From her words, Walter understood that she was someone who had lived a peaceful life, someone gentle and thoughtful. However, there were moments when she suddenly went quiet, her eyes drifting toward the window as if remembering something she couldn't speak aloud. Walter noticed these moments and felt a quiet worry, but he didn't press her. He believed there was something in her past that still frightened her, something she hadn't found the courage to share. He hoped that one day she would trust him enough to reveal it, but he knew trust grows slowly, like a seed in dry soil. One afternoon, when the sun outside was soft and golden, Naya finally told him more. Her voice trembled slightly as she described how she had left her home after facing a difficult situation. She chose her words carefully, avoiding details that might reopen painful memories. She explained that she had been scared and confused, unsure where to go. She had walked for a long time, believing she could find help, or at least reach a safer place. Walter listened patiently, nodding. He didn't ask why she was scared or what had happened. He let her speak freely, at her own pace. She explained that while walking in the desert, she lost her balance on rough ground and fell. After that fall, she couldn't move her legs. She tried calling for help, but no one could hear her. Days went by, and she felt weaker with each sunrise. She had almost accepted that she would never be found, until Walter appeared. Her eyes filled with emotion as she whispered, "I thought I was going to disappear there. I thought no one would ever find me." Walter felt a tightness in his chest, not from anger, but from compassion. "You're here now," he said in a warm, steady tone. "You're alive, and you're going to get the care you need." Naya nodded, tears gathering in her eyes but not falling. She wasn't crying from sadness. It was something softer, something like gratitude and relief. With each passing day, the trust between them grew. The hospital staff also noticed the bond forming. Nurses often commented quietly about how Naya seemed calmer whenever Walter was in the room. He brought a sense of stability, something she needed as she faced new challenges. As she continued to recover, Naya began meeting with a physical therapist. The therapist explained her condition carefully and kindly, showing her exercises that could help strengthen her upper body and improve her independence. Even though walking was uncertain at this point, they focused on helping her feel in control again. Naya approached each session with quiet determination, though it wasn't easy. Some days she felt strong, and other days she felt discouraged. But every time she looked toward the door and saw Walter watching with quiet encouragement, she found the strength to continue. Still, the questions about her past remained. Walter didn't push, but he couldn't forget the look of fear he saw in her eyes when she first arrived. He wondered who or what she had been trying to escape. He wondered if someone would be looking for her or if she had been deliberately left alone. But he kept these thoughts to himself. Naya had already been through enough, and he didn't want to add pressure to her healing journey. For now, she needed safety, care, and time. And Walter was ready to give her all three. Every night, after leaving the hospital, he drove home thinking about her courage. He admired how she stayed calm despite everything. He admired her strength, her honesty, and the gentle way she spoke. He couldn't understand why someone so kind had ended up struggling alone in the desert. But deep inside, he knew something bigger was unfolding, something that would eventually lead to answers, and perhaps even justice. He didn't know how yet, but he felt a quiet promise growing inside him. He would not let her face the future alone. Her story was no longer just hers. It had become part of his life, too. Naya's recovery moved slowly, but every small improvement brought a spark of hope into her life. The hospital room had become a strange mix of comfort and challenge. Some days she woke up feeling strong enough to try new exercises. Other days she struggled to lift her arms or stay awake. But one thing never changed. Walter walked into her room every morning, his calm presence filling the quiet space like warm sunlight. He always carried something with him, Sometimes a small bouquet of wildflowers he picked from the roadside. Sometimes a story from his past work, sometimes just his steady smile. Naya had begun to wait for him. She didn't say it aloud, but she felt less alone whenever he arrived. The physical therapist, a gentle woman named Karen, visited daily to guide Naya through her exercises. She helped her stretch her arms, strengthen her shoulders, and improve her balance while sitting. The exercises weren't easy. Naya often felt frustrated when her body didn't respond the way she wanted. But every time she felt discouraged, Karen reminded her gently that healing takes patience. Walter watched from the corner of the room, always encouraging her with soft words like, "You're doing great," or "Take your time, no rush." His voice had a grounded calmness that made her believe she could do more than she thought. One afternoon, after finishing a difficult session, Naya leaned back in her wheelchair, completely exhausted. Sweat rested lightly on her forehead, and her breath was uneven. Karen left the room to get some water, and Walter stepped closer. "You're stronger than you think," he told her with a smile. Naya shook her head slowly. "Some days I feel like I'm not getting anywhere." Walter pulled the chair next to her and sat down. "Progress isn't a straight road," he said. "Some days you move forward. Some days you feel stuck. But every step matters, even the small ones." Naya looked at him gratefully. She admired the way he spoke, gentle but honest. She wondered how a man who had seen so much in life still carried so much kindness. Over the next few weeks, Naya began spending more time outside her room. Karen encouraged her to move around the hallways in her wheelchair to strengthen her arms and build confidence. At first, she felt nervous, afraid of other people staring. But the hospital staff always greeted her warmly, and Walter often walked beside her, matching her pace without making her feel rushed. During these small hallway walks, she noticed things she had ignored earlier. The smell of fresh coffee from the cafeteria, the cheerful greetings from nurses, the colorful paintings on the walls. Slowly, life began to open up again, one moment at a time. Outside of therapy, Naya and Walter talked a lot. Their conversations grew deeper, though still gentle. She told him about the things she loved, painting, stories from her elders, the beautiful night skies on the reservation. Walter listened with genuine interest, asking thoughtful questions. Sometimes he shared bits of his own life, how serving as a sheriff taught him about patience and compassion, how he missed his late wife, how retirement made him feel both peaceful and lonely at times. He didn't share everything, but Naya could see that he carried his own quiet sadness. One afternoon, when the sun cast a warm glow through the hospital window, Naya opened up about something she had kept hidden. She spoke quietly, her voice a soft whisper. "I feel like my life ended in the desert," she said. "Even though I survived, I don't feel like the same person." Walter looked at her with deep understanding. "Life didn't end there," he said softly. "Something new started, and you're stronger for everything you've gone through." She nodded slowly. She wanted to believe him. But a part of her still feared what the future would hold. She didn't know if she would walk again, or what kind of life she could build now. Over time, Naya's strength grew in ways she didn't expect. She became better at moving her wheelchair independently, pushing herself through the halls with more confidence. She learned to dress herself with minimal assistance. She even began drawing again. Walter brought her sketchbooks and pencils, and she spent hours filling the pages with soft images, mountains, rivers, traditional designs, and quiet moments that lived only in her memory. Drawing helped her breathe, helped her feel connected to the person she once was. Walter kept every drawing she gifted him. He never said it aloud, but each picture meant more to him than she realized. But as much as life seemed to be moving forward, a quiet worry lived in the background. Naya still had not told him the full story of what had happened before he found her. She wanted to, but each time the memory rose, her heartbeat grew fast, and fear squeezed her chest. She wasn't ready. Not yet. One day, while Naya was practicing her wheelchair movements near the courtyard, Walter stepped away to make a phone call. He had something on his mind for weeks. His old instincts, the ones that never left him even after retirement, whispered that something wasn't right. The way Naya hesitated whenever he asked about her past, the fear in her eyes when she remembered the desert, all of it suggested that more had happened than she let on. He didn't want to pressure her, but he also felt a quiet responsibility growing inside him. She had no family visiting, no friends calling, no one asking about her. It was unusual, and Walter began to worry that she might be alone in more ways than she admitted. He called one of his old colleagues, someone still working at the sheriff's department. He didn't share details about Naya's personal life. He didn't want to break her trust. He only asked if there had been any reports, missing person notices, or anything that could help him understand her situation. His colleague promised to look into it discreetly. When Walter returned to Naya, she was sitting under a tree in the courtyard, sketching the clouds. The soft breeze moved her hair gently, and sunlight lit her face. She looked peaceful, and Walter felt relieved. Whatever painful past she carried, she was safe now. Days turned into weeks, and Naya's emotional strength grew alongside her physical improvements. She learned to transfer herself from the bed to the wheelchair with minimal help. She practiced using special tools to assist with daily tasks. She even joined small therapy group sessions, though she stayed quiet most of the time. Each day she grew more confident, and each day her connection with Walter deepened. She felt grateful for him, grateful in a way that words could not express. She often wondered why a stranger would care so much. One evening, when Walter was about to leave for the day, she asked quietly, "Why do you do all this for me?" His answer was simple and sincere. "Because you deserve help. Because you didn't deserve to be alone out there. And because I believe in you." It was the first time in a long while that Naya felt valued simply for being herself. She carried those words with her, letting them heal a part of her spirit she didn't even know was wounded. But healing wasn't the only thing happening. Small hints about the people who had left her in the desert began to appear. Not from Walter, not from the nurses, but from tiny flashes in Naya's own memory. She began remembering faces, conversations, and moments filled with confusion. She remembered walking alone under the sun, trying to escape something unclear. She remembered calling out for help and hearing silence. Sometimes the memories came like soft echoes, other times like sudden shadows, but each memory carried the same feeling: fear. She didn't tell Walter everything yet. She didn't want to worry him, and she didn't want to relive her pain, but Walter sensed it anyway. His instincts sharpened, though he kept them quiet. He wanted her to heal at her own pace, but deep inside, he knew there was a story waiting to be told, a story that would change everything once it came out. For now, he simply stayed by her side, and Naya slowly learned to trust him with her past, her fears, and even her hopes. She didn't know what the next stage of her life would look like, but she knew one thing for sure: she wasn't facing it alone, and that changed everything. As days passed, Naya's body continued to heal in small but meaningful ways, and her spirit grew stronger too. The hospital staff began to notice how different she looked now. Her eyes brighter, her voice steadier, her confidence slowly returning. Even though she still couldn't move her legs, she carried herself with new courage. She was learning how to live again, step by step, from her wheelchair, from her drawings, from the gentle support around her. Every morning, Walter arrived at the hospital with the same calm presence. Sometimes he brought her breakfast from a local cafe, fresh fruit, warm bread, or herbal tea. Sometimes he brought her stories from town, updates about people he knew, or memories from his years in service. And every time he walked into her room, she felt a warmth in her chest, knowing she had someone who cared. One morning, Naya looked at him with quiet determination. "Walter," she said softly, "I think I'm ready now." He sat down carefully, sensing something important was coming. "Ready for what?" he asked in his gentle way. "To tell you everything," she replied. For a moment, Walter didn't say anything, not because he was surprised, but because he understood how much courage it took for her to reach this moment. He nodded slowly. "I'm here," he said. "Take your time." Naya took a deep breath. Her fingers trembled slightly as they rested on the arms of her wheelchair. She stared at the sunlight streaming through the window, letting it calm her. "My life was simple before all this," she began. "I lived with my family, helped in our community, and spent my time painting and teaching children. Everything was peaceful, but things changed at home. People close to me stopped understanding me. They didn't listen when I tried to explain my dreams, my worries, or the things I wanted. I felt like I didn't have a place anymore." Walter listened with full attention, not interrupting. "One day," she continued, "I left home because I felt lost. I wanted fresh air, clear thoughts, space to understand myself. I didn't expect to get hurt. I didn't expect to end up alone in the desert. When I fell and couldn't move my legs, I panicked. But there was no one around to help. I tried to stay awake. I tried to call out, but the desert was quiet." Her voice softened. "I was afraid no one would ever find me." Walter looked at her with deep compassion. "You're safe now," he said, "and you're not alone anymore." Naya nodded. She felt lighter, as if releasing her story had lifted weight off her heart. For the first time, she didn't feel ashamed or scared. She felt understood. After opening up, Naya found herself smiling more. She spoke with more confidence in her therapy sessions, laughed lightly at the nurses' jokes, and even started joining small gatherings in the rehabilitation center where patients supported each other. She realized she wasn't the only one facing challenges. Everyone had a story, everyone had fears, and everyone was trying to move forward in their own way. Karen, the physical therapist, introduced her to new exercises that helped her feel more independent. Naya learned how to wheel herself through uneven surfaces, how to transfer from the wheelchair to a chair, and how to use supportive devices for daily tasks. At first it felt impossible, but with each passing day she surprised herself. Her determination grew stronger than her doubt. Walter often stood nearby, cheering her on, reminding her to breathe, reminding her that progress didn't have to be perfect. Whenever she felt discouraged, he simply said, "Look how far you've come." And she believed him. As the weeks turned into a few months, the doctors finally felt confident enough to discuss her next step. They believed she was ready to leave the hospital and enter a rehabilitation home where she could continue building her strength in a supportive environment. It would not be easy, but it would give her tools to create a future full of possibilities. When the doctor explained the plan, Naya felt a mix of emotions: hope, nervousness, and a little fear. She had grown used to the hospital, to the faces she saw every day, to the comfort of knowing someone was always nearby. The thought of entering a new place scared her, but she also knew that staying forever wasn't an option. That evening, when the hospital grew quiet, she talked to Walter about it. "I don't know if I'm ready," she said softly. Walter reached out and held her hand gently. "You don't have to be completely ready," he said. "You just have to take one step at a time. You already proved you're strong." She smiled at him, feeling a wave of peace wash over her. "Will you still visit me?" she asked. "Of course," he said without hesitation. "You're not going through this alone." A few days later, Naya was discharged from the hospital. The staff gathered around her, hugged her, and wished her well. Karen told her she was proud of her progress. Nurses gave her encouraging words and small gifts like decorative bracelets and notebooks for her drawings. It felt like leaving family behind. Walter helped her pack her belongings, her sketchbooks, the gifts she received, and the small blanket that had been her comfort during the toughest days. As they reached the exit, Naya paused. She looked back at the door, remembering the person she had been when she first arrived, weak, scared, and unsure if she would ever smile again. Now she was leaving as someone stronger, someone hopeful. At the rehabilitation center, the atmosphere was kind and welcoming. Staff members showed her her room, introduced her to other patients, and explained the new activities she would be part of: art therapy, group talks, music sessions, and outdoor exercise programs designed for wheelchair users. It was different from the hospital, but in a gentle way. That afternoon, Walter took her to a small garden behind the center. The flowers were in full bloom, and a soft breeze swayed the branches. Naya breathed deeply, letting the fresh air fill her lungs. "This place is nice," she said. "It is," Walter agreed, "and it's a good place for you to grow." She looked at him with a warm smile. "I wouldn't be here without you." Walter shook his head lightly. "You did the hard work. I just showed up." Naya's eyes softened. "Showing up is sometimes the hardest thing," she whispered. Life at the rehabilitation center unfolded gently. Naya made new friends, shared stories with people who understood hardship, and rediscovered parts of herself she thought she had lost. She painted again, her drawings full of color and emotion. She participated in group sessions and found comfort in listening to others. Slowly, she built a community around her. Walter visited her regularly, just as he promised. They spent time in the garden, went on short walks around the center, with Naya rolling in her wheelchair and Walter walking beside her, and talked about everything from memories to dreams. One evening, under a golden sunset, Naya shared something she had been thinking about for weeks. "I want to help others one day," she said. "People who feel lost. People who feel alone like I did." Walter's eyes filled with warmth. "You already inspire people," he told her. "Your strength, your courage. Anyone who meets you learns something from you." Naya lowered her eyes, touched by his words. "I just want to give back," she said. "Just like you did for me." Their bond had grown into something gentle, deep, and timeless. It wasn't based on obligation or pity. It was built on trust, understanding, and shared moments of quiet healing. Walter saw her not as someone broken, but as someone extraordinary. And Naya saw him not as someone rescuing her, but as someone walking beside her in a world she was learning to navigate again. Months later, Naya reached a new stage in her recovery. With the center's support, she learned how to live independently in her wheelchair, how to cook, clean, travel, and take care of herself. She even began volunteering at the center, helping new patients feel welcome and understood. Her soft voice and thoughtful nature made her a natural comfort to others. Through it all, Walter stayed a part of her life. He had found a purpose again, something he thought he'd lost after retirement. Helping Naya reminded him that compassion didn't end with age or experience. It continued as long as someone needed it. Their journey was far from over, but it had transformed them both. Naya had found hope again, and Walter had found meaning. They had saved each other in quiet, gentle ways, and the desert that once nearly took everything from her had become the beginning of a beautiful new story, one filled with courage, kindness, and a bond that would last a lifetime.